What's this? An anime game that has Dark Souls combat with waifus and husbandos, and you can make your own? Oh my.
Now that's comedy.
So Code Vein is an interesting game. I mean, looking at its gameplay, you would think, gee, is that anime mixed with Dark Souls? And yes it is. Now it's such a killer combination, you would think that the internet was ablaze with hype for it. And they were. In 2018, when it was delayed. Then we didn't hear anything about the game all year. But okay, it's E3 2019. Bandai has just shown off Tales of Rise Up Gamers. They have to show Code Vein at the biggest gaming event? No? You're just going to announce the release date afterwards? And hence why I think a lot of people just fell off the bandwagon. Because when this was first announced, it was insane the amount of hype I saw for it. But, well, it's released, and what do I think of it? It might be one of my favourite games this year. So what's the basic gist of old Code Veiny? Well, if you know the Dark Souls genre, i.e. create a character, run around in a huge connected world where enemies can defeat you very easily, and it requires very precise dodging and attacking, well, this is that, but with anime. Yes, as opposed to Dark Souls' passive storytelling, this is filled with cutscenes, edge, and personality.
It seems everyone, everywhere is thirsty.
Okay, so after the most epic sounding title card, and also an anime OP made by those fake dudes, we get to create our character. And a big reason as to why this game was so hyped was the amount of customization you had. I mean, you could honestly make any character you wanted. Or this thing. Okay, now let's make Ramona the channel mascot. Damn, she almost looks as good as the official Ramses t-shirt. Order now, only available in 2019, link in the description.
Hey, you can't advertise here!
So yes, this game offers boundless amounts of customization, even allowing you to move accessories onto or around the body like a certain other game. And yes, I spent 50 minutes customizing her. Shush.
Hey, can you hear me?
No.
So we awaken on this magic tutorial place where we learn the mechanics and combat. As usual, we'll get into that later, because honestly, it was a bit confusing on some things here, but playing through the game I got the hang of it through some trial and error. We then awaken to find this penguin looking girl watching over us, as we see that the world is in this anime apocalyptic state. We however are very hungry, and the girl takes us to this white tree, and bites our arm, so we bleed onto it, causing it to sprout these blood seed things which we then eat.
Sleeping like a baby!
So yeah, I'll get into it more later on, but this is those edgy kind of anime, you know, with blood being a major focus. However, spotting two waifus, this group captures and throws us into a cell.
My asthma's pretty thick.
And they are undead zombies, kinda. For some reason they were brought back to life, but only need blood to survive. They either feed off humans or these blood beads that we saw earlier. And in this wasteland, the revenants form groups to gather the beads and bring it back to a base where they are then passed around. We of course get forced into that after they hold our penguin hostage, so into the mines we go. They shove another dude down called Oliver, and he becomes our partner in battle. Because a big thing that separates this from Dark Souls is that you won't have to travel the places alone. No, you get a party member who can run around with you, and we carefully make our way through fighting these beings called the Lost, who are revenants who haven't had enough blood and given to their animalistic needs.
Oh, wait! Are you alright? How do you feel?
This better not be a recurring thing. So the goal is to make our way through, defeat the Lost, which gives us this thing called haze, and then finding these missiles, which are plant-like things that act as the bonfire checkpoint system. And since we are undead, we keep getting brought back to life from there. As yeah, like with my fall, once you die, you lose all your haze and must grab it again. But if you die before that, you lose the haze forever. Instantly, this offers a more challenging system than most, as your healing is limited and you do run the risk of going to the next checkpoint or turning back and healing, because if you do, all the enemies you beat respawn, so you can't cheese the system. We then continue on to find another revenant who seems to have a bit of a red eye.
That could have gone better. I'll catch up with you in a bit.
Well, he dead. So Ramona continues alone until she finds a more handsome stranger. Well, so long, Oliver. Nice knowing ya. So the two eventually find their way out, with Oliver waiting for them. Hey, that was completely unexpected. Then, with much skill and finesse, we beat Oliver and rescue the penguin, who somehow travelled here. However, we find a mysterious looking crystal, which seems to be called a visage. If you touch it, your mind will be corrupted, turning you into a lost. No, Ramona, don't touch it! It transported us into this blue place, where the frame rate just dies. It seems to show us Oliver's memories. And after making our way back to reality, the stranger says his name is Louis, and he's researching blood beads. Okay, I guess you're not just a random NPC, eh? He takes us back to his base, where Louis reveals some more lore, that there was this powerful Queen Revenant who was defeated, but ever since that day, the red mist appeared, trapping people inside this dome. And now this person called Silver leads the Revenants while capturing remaining humans to be used as cattle by extracting their blood constantly. But he notices that us, as a super special MC, was able to cause the blood beads to form on those trees, as well as remove parts of the asthma. He then asks us if we remember anything of our earlier life. Well, it's an anime game, of course we have amnesia. Now we get to wander the main hub area, and here is where you meet the other people in the team. You have Murasame, the weapons shop, Davis, the map guy, Coco, the item shop with a big personality. I'll talk more about this place later on, because now we agree to help Louis out, who tells us what to do next. That the blood bead supply has been running low recently, and that his team are investigating the mist to find the source. But since they are revenants, they can't go through it without going crazy. However, we have the power to clear the asthma. Best Boy then introduces himself as Yakumo, and we learn that these beads are located on top of a blood vein that runs along the surface of the earth. Ley lines. If we follow them back to the source, we may be able to find out what's causing this shortage of blood beads. And so out into the wilderness we go, with our fabulous high heels. So this is the city ruins, and well, it's a ruined city. Now here is where you find all sorts of enemies. Most of them are humanoid creatures that wield the same weapons you can, or you have dogs, or even... Now while exploring, you have the map in the top right, which is really cool because it shows your footprints. So even without a layout of the land, you sort of have some indication on where you're going. Because yes, even at some points, it can be incredibly confusing as to where you should go next. However, if you find these red rotten missiles, they open up parts of the map you explored. Traveling through, the trio then find a revenant who has lost a human girl they captured and is wanting them back, you know, for the blood. But we can't have that, and try to get her before they do. This leads us through the city with many winding areas till we reach this place with a giant cocoon. Yeah, that's gonna be a boss battle, isn't it? Oh, I see, even the bosses are waifus. So we find that the Revenant had caught up with the human, but the cocoon butterfly dragon thing gets in the way. Now this is the first big proper boss encounter. Man, was it tough. I mean, even with Louis, this was insanely hard just to dodge for long enough so that he could whittle down the health. Okay then, you know what? I tried something else. I swapped my partner to Yakumo. Yes, he's actually a partner, and you do get more of them later in the game, but as you'll see, this boss is super easy now. Holy moly, I didn't even attack once. Once defeated, surprisingly, Louis gives the Revenant spare blood beads we had, and talking to the girl that there's this place that doesn't use the humans as cattle, but instead all they ask is you to donate blood every once in a while and you'll be treated as a normal human. She agrees and we make our way to the next area. And so here I guess is a good point to actually talk about the gameplay. Okay, well of course you got the normal and heavy attack, but then you have the most important thing in the game. The dodge button. Not only to dodge enemy attacks, but well, travel faster. And it's monitored by this white stamina bar. You can also parry and guard, but honestly, I'm not joking, I didn't use them once in the entire playthrough. Yeah, dodging was more efficient for my style. Now you have this thing called a blood code. Essentially, it's what class you are, and you can change this anytime you want. Now, being a class lets you equip different weapons like swords, lances, heavy weapons, or bayonets. Different classes also give you this thing called E-Core, which are over here. So by pressing the right trigger and using them, you can get a buff or a shield or whatever that E-Core is, and the amount you can use is limited here. However, if you backstab an enemy, not only do you get a cutscene, it restores the number. But honestly, I was attacking from behind so much in this game, and it never really happened that often, so I guess the window for it is very small for it to trigger. Now these E-Cores are very useful, and you will want to pick the best one that suits your playstyle.
Also this one.
As it's the share half your health to your ally, because yes, your partner might die, and so you can keep them alive by giving them health, and conversely they can do the same for you. It adds so much more strategy to the game that you have to manage when you have to use it to save Yakumo from an early death and repay him for healing you so much.
Watch where you're going to step next.
Thanks. I'm glad you're here.
Now do note you can actually play solo if you choose and have it be traditional, but me personally, it felt so much of a better game having someone run around with you. Then finally you get these items you can change up, with the most important one being healing, as it does refill anytime you go to a missile. So then to the combat, well, if you know the Souls games, you should know what to do. But if you don't, the enemies hit really hard and can often combo stun you, taking a bunch of health. So when they wind up for an attack, you have to either dodge or parry at the right time to avoid getting hit, then counter with your own attacks. Do note attacks also use up stamina because, come on, they can't make it too easy. Which is amusing then, because I'm very happy to say this game is nowhere near as difficult as the Souls, Sekiro, Nioh games. And for me, the horrible gamer, this was amazing. I mean, I have Dark Souls and Bloodborne, but I'm kinda thinking,
Why do I have these?
oh yeah, it came free with the PS4. But still, when I tried it, it was so difficult for me. However, to anyone who wanted to jump into the Souls games but thought they were too hard, this is the perfect jumping in point, because there are some things you can do to break the game. Firstly, always pick Yakumo. He's a tank that can shield you while dealing a bunch of damage to the enemy. Second, it's hammer time. Because as you'll see, I can literally destroy bosses in one life with the hammer. I mean, this was so fun figuring out for myself. As the haze you collect, you can use it at the missile to level up. So that's what I prioritized. Then I leveled up these two weapons and boom, bang, nearly every boss in the game was a cinch. Do note the hammer is very heavy and there is a weight mechanic to the game. So pretty much then how it went is in the map I used this weapon, but when I came up against the boss, it's hammer time, baby. Okay, for the people who love the difficult challenge of the Souls games, this will seem very easy by comparison. But I do know you can handicap yourself if you want, like removing the partner. But for others like myself, this was actually fun to see and know that I could beat this game. Oh, but don't worry, it was still hard, as in I had to know when to dodge, heal, attack, heal Yakumo, and so on. It still offered a challenge, and I felt so good when I could win with just a tiny amount of health left. Now to the other aspects of the game, and well, it's got a hot spring. No, it's not just for the anime fan service. You can review past memories here, and also if you feel that you can't retrieve your dead body, you can give up and go to the hot springs, essentially retrieving half of your haze back for free. And speaking of memories, this is the other aspect of the game, the walking simulator. So the visages are people's memories, and Ramona has the power to view them, essentially being a way to find out about the game's lore. Now most of these are optional, and I can see why people want them to be since you move so slow. But let's just say, this game has 3 endings, and it's all based on whether or not you get a certain type of visage in each map. Now to the next area where we find a visage, and grabbing it, we see Louis' memories of him and his schoolmate Cruz, who was that girl talking to us in the void. Turns out she was actually that queen because she was experimented on by humans to hopefully have her save the world from some sort of evil, but she couldn't handle the power and frenzied, meaning that the others had to take her down. Now to be fair, even though I was super hyped for this game, I didn't look up anything on its story, and from the opening I thought it'd be something like, oh yeah, this is just hunting for blood blood beads to keep our boss happy. So I actually was pleasantly surprised at how different the story turned out, that you were investigating the mystery of your world and how to fix it. And eventually the game takes you to many different locations with all kinds of bosses. Like you have this wet, foggy place with heavy water that slows you down. I will say this map also taught me that yes, you need to explore around, as you will require a key to progress into, you can't just run through. And here we meet, I guess, the cover girl of the game, Mia. It was an interesting outfit to say the least.
What a terrible place.
She is the gunner type partner character, who I obviously didn't use. Nothing is gonna stop me from Hammer Bro Yakumo. She joins our team after we help her out in the swamp place, and from here the game takes us to many other climates, including deserts, a fireplace that somehow had no frame drops even though other areas did, and snow. Then there was this cathedral, where I found out how the game actually likes to impose some sort of challenge, and that's with the enemy rush. So at certain trigger points in the map, and no, it's not from online, trust me, I checked, I hated this so much, a horde of strong enemies gang rush you at once, and you have to defeat around 10 of them to survive. Sometimes it can be stupidly annoying, like not fun, I can't handle more than 2 enemies at once, so I did what I do best, I ran. Come on, Ramona, you can do it! Oh no!
I'm such a pro.
I then obviously cordoned off that place to never visit it again. That's probably a big downside for me with this game. Not that it's challenging, but that in each map it has to needlessly spike up the difficulty with so many enemies your lock-on can't handle, because by the way the lock-on isn't the greatest. Anyway, here as well go into more of the story in a loose fashion. I won't be showing too much on the lore, just some of the cooler bosses. So skip here if you want to avoid any final boss stuff. Okay, then at the cathedral place, there was this point, which I think is optional, where you can actually go back in time to the Queen's downfall, but you have all your current weapons and levels, because you actually were the one who took down the Queen, but since you absorbed some of her energy, they try to kill you but evidently failed since you're alive at the start. Well, alive in the Revenant sense. Now to stop the Queen from bringing herself back, they split her body up into these relics to house in people who volunteered, called successors. The game then becomes, find all these people, and save them from their relics which will corrupt them over time. And most of these successors are related to the main cast in some way. Now the visages show a lot of their memories, and to actually get the true ending, you need to get all of them in each map, and then talk to this girl here before the boss watching their memory. These people are the clones of Penguin, whose name is Io. Think of them as sort of bodyguards to the successors, and Io is that for us. Anyway, we make our way to some more final areas, including the hardest boss in the game, which was just 2 of them at once. And man, I tried for so many hours on this before eventually winning. Yeah, turns out the hammer is really slow, so I learned to mix it up, changing out the hammer to dodge easier. The game then eventually resorts to, well, you know the mist? Well, it's actually protecting us from these things. Yes, that's horrifying, please keep the mist up. And so the final dungeon is this castle area, which was extremely long and challenging. However, I made my way through, talking to the penguin, watching the memories, till my game crashed. Yeah, I guess Unreal Engine ain't the greatest sometimes. So I didn't bother watching the rest, which meant I kinda didn't get the true ending. But I only knew I had to do this after looking it up afterwards. I won't actually spoil any of the endings or what happens, but you fight this wolf thing and it transforms into this thing, and man, it was such a great fight. Yakumo tanked so much, dying in the end, with no more healing, and the last ounce of strength I did the final blow. So yeah, there are 3 endings, a bad, a middle, and a good ending. And I got the middle one because I watched some of the memories, but not all of them. And you get the bad or true endings depending if you've either seen none of them or all of them. Well yeah, story-wise, it wasn't as cliche as I thought, and it did get me in the feels at some points, but other times it felt like it needed a little something more, maybe more time with the party to get to know them personally. Also, ease up on the titty, okay game? Anyway, back to some things I had issues with the gameplay, and well, there were a few. For one, the low frame rate. Now, I'm not a frame rate snob or anything like that, I can't be bothered by 60 FPS and so on, but on PC, to suddenly see the game actually jitter in many cutscenes was quite worrying.
Yikes.
Most of them happened in these sections where you run to the next area after beating a boss, and I guess the game was loading the next part to make it seem like it was a seamless connected world, but I honestly would have just preferred to teleport in, and also with those memory sections. I know it's a cool way to show them off and actually reminds me of another game, but it just felt so slow moving through it, and the fact that you couldn't do anything else just made some of them feel a bit tedious. Then the sound, which, oh my goodness, I don't know if I've ever been more split on sound design in a game. So the music was great whenever it played, which was rarely. Like only when you fought monsters. Not even in your base there was music, apart from some J-rock which kinda didn't suit the place. It was either pick Japanese punk rock or howling winds to listen to. And then you have the sound effects. Now most of the time they sounded great. Other times, I mean, I live in Down Under land, I really hope that's not how snow sounds like. And then for the bosses, you know, the creatures of epic proportions, it was kinda weird the choices they used for them. Like the butterfly one, the dragon tail made these stock sounding dinosaur noises. Or the fish girl would do this cheap laugh sound. Then on the other hand, the English voices are top tier. If you played any recent Japanese game, you will have heard of at least one of these voices in them. And I mean...
Everyone on his team is skilled, but they get carried away.
Wait a minute. Oh no, not again. Also at the home base, you could actually do these things like sit down in places, and I mean it was cool, but maybe they should have expanded on this, like maybe some mini games, or do I have to make my own fun? Yes, she has a drinking problem. There were then small things like not being able to know what items you held in a map, i.e. the door key. Sometimes in the heat of battle I didn't even see if it popped up, so I didn't know if I could unlock the door, because I can't see the item anywhere. But yeah, okay, with that all out of the way, honestly, I kinda think this was one of my favourite games this year. And I guess it's due to the fact that for so long, I wanted to get into the Souls series, but always found myself intimidated by the difficulty. This is a perfect jumping in point to the genre, if you don't mind the, personality. The areas in the game were vast and varied, like some were breathtaking. Although I do wish some of the monster designs were a bit different, like a bit more variety. I actually hope they do make a sequel, as there is plenty they can improve upon, because the world was strangely charming in an edgy anime sort of way. And I mean, come on, I just love how detailed the character customization is. I can't believe how good she looks, I'm so happy.
Trojan, Ramses, Magnum, Sheik.